Of course, today's talk is not about Coca-Cola itself, but it is about what Coca-Cola symbolizes and what Coca-Cola stands for. Of course, Coca-Cola symbolizes and stands for the American culture. The American culture. If there is one symbol we could say that identifies American culture, it is Coca-Cola. And really, it's incredibly appropriate that this drink symbolizes that culture. Because the Coca-Cola culture is a culture of materialism, it's a culture of consumerism, it's a culture that tells us that in order to enjoy life, and in order to get the best out of life, you should feed your passions and your desires and your appetites. That the way to be successful and the way to be happy is by surrounding yourself with the material possessions of the world. Buy this, buy that, have this, have that. What you feel like, do it. What you feel like eating, eat it. The way you feel like behaving, behave like that. The things you feel like doing in life, do it. The God that is worshipped, the thing that is the thing that the human being is to submit to and surrender to and obey are the passions and the desires. The nafs, what we call the nafs, al-hawa, the passions, the self, the desire. And this Coca-Cola symbolizes that pretty well. It symbolizes not only this attitude and this mentality and this philosophy of life, it also gives us a pretty good idea of what is the real effect of living your life in that way. Because what does Coca-Cola do for you? You drink it, it gives you almost immediate response. The immediate response is a feeling of satisfaction, gratification, and a boost of energy. This is what Coca-Cola does. You drink it, satisfaction, you get a boost of sugar from and a boost from the caffeine, and probably a burp soon afterwards from the gas. But the reality is that very soon you follow a downward spiral. You follow a downward spiral. And soon after, as you felt high, you soon feel a low. And in order to try and reach that high again, then you're going to take some more of this drink or some similar drink in order to reboost yourself. So in order to try and maintain yourself on this constant high, then you're drinking more and more and taking more and more. And this is the reality of the person and the people who worship their desires and worship their passions and worship themselves. In fact, it is illustrative of the whole manner in which Western society exists. Exactly that. There is no long-lasting satisfaction. Satisfaction is temporary. It is a temporary boost, a temporary moment of joy. It is followed by an equally low moment. And in order to try and bring back that moment of happiness, we consume more. We find more avenues in order to satisfy our desires. But the reality is, the passion and the desire can never be satisfied. This is a statement of fact about the human being. The Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, said, if the son of Adam was given a valley of gold, he would desire another one. If the son of Adam was given a valley of gold, he would desire another one. Nothing will satisfy the desires of the sons and the daughters of Adam except the dust of the grave. Nothing is going to satisfy our desires. The only time that our desires will end is when we are dead. So you see, a civilization, if we can call it a civilization, or a philosophy or an ideology that teaches us that the way to be happy in life is by satisfying your passions and your desires, by following your cravings, physical and emotional and ideological, that success in life is by surrounding yourself with material possessions. The reality is, we know that this brings no long-lasting satisfaction. We buy something nice, we buy some new clothes, we get a new house, we get a new car, but how long does the joy and the pleasure of that last? A few hours, a few days, maybe a few years, but before long we are craving for something more expensive, more beautiful, more faster. If we get our kicks from adrenaline, then we try this sport and that sport, but always we are looking for something that is going to give us more of an adrenaline kick. Similarly, some people satisfy their passions and their desires through sexual encounters, promiscuity, but there is no satisfaction. Because once you have tried everything, then you need something else to excite you. You need something else to stimulate you. So people go further and further down the road. Fetishes, orgies, same-sex relationships. Or it's not enough anymore that you have your own wife. You have to go and you have to enjoy yourself with another man's wife. That's how you have to get your kicks. Because this is the reality. You're never satisfied. Doesn't matter how much money you have, you want more. It doesn't matter how much fame and success you have, you want more. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are, you want to be more beautiful. This is the reality. So what has this got to do with the Muslims? Why therefore do we choose this title, the Coca-Cola Muslim Generation? What is taking place here, of course, is a war, a conflict. Not a conflict, mind you, necessarily of arms and weapons, but it is an ideological conflict. It is a war of ideologies. It is a war of worldviews. It is a war, a battle concerning what is the nature of the human being. What is the purpose of life? Why are we here? And what is the reason for our existence? And what is the means for the human being to achieve true success and true happiness? This is the war, this is the conflict that is taking place. So what we find is another worldview, another ideology, another concept. And that is Islam. Islam teaches something quite different. Islam teaches that the way to success and happiness is not by acquiring material possessions. It is not through seeking to satisfy your passions and your desires and your lusts. and following your whims and your inclinations. Rather, the needs of the human being are quite different to that. Islam teaches that those who follow this path, who worship this God, because it is a type of God, it's a type of deity. When you worship your passions and your desires, it is a type of religion in reality, it's a type of worship, it's a type of deity. That this is a false God, it is a false deity. Islam teaches that this is not the way through which human beings can achieve the real success, because that is not the nature of the human being. Rather, Islam teaches that there is a creator, one God, who has brought this universe and everything in it. He has brought it into existence for a reason and for a purpose. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a reason. And this begs the question. This begs the question. What is our purpose? What is the reason for our existence? Why are we here? What is the purpose of the existence of the human being? We have now discussed already something about the idea of the Coca-Cola culture, the materialistic viewpoint. But what does Islam say? What does the Quran say? The Quran teaches us that God has created us for a noble purpose. The Quran says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. This means that God is telling us in the Quran that He has created us to worship Him. Some people say, is that it? I mean, the purpose of my existence is just to worship God? And that's because they have a very narrow concept of what worship means. They think of worship in the secular materialistic term that has been defined by the Western society. Worship means maybe, you go to the mosque 5 times a day, or you go to the church once a week, you perform some rituals, you perform some acts. That is considered to be worship. However, the term ibadah in Islam, which we translate as worship, has a very, very deep, rich meaning. It is something much more than some mere formal actions that you perform. Worship in Islam is a total way of living. It is something that is supposed to occupy the human being throughout all of their life, from the moment they wake up to when they go to sleep, and in fact even whilst they are sleeping. Worship is supposed to occupy all of your life. And how does it do that? How does worship occupy all of your life? If we look to the definition of the term ibadah, and this is what God has created us for, ibadah, what does it actually mean? The word ibadah we can explain it as meaning everything which God loves and is pleased with. Everything which God loves, everything which God is pleased with is ibadah. Everything which God loves and everything which God is pleased with is worship, ibadah. Or we don't want to use the word worship, we'll just say ibadah. Whether it is from the actions of the heart or the actions of the limbs. What are the actions of the heart? People think, what is the action of the heart? Actions of the heart are things like love, hope, fear, reverential awe, trust, reliance, intention, sincerity. These are all examples of actions of the heart. So you have to try to make every action of the heart an action that God loves and is pleased with. And the actions of the limbs are things like, well, everything that you perform with your limbs. It could be prayer, it could be fasting, it could be the relationship between a husband and his wife. It could be how you walk, how you talk. All of these things are actions of the limbs. So you try to make every action that you do an action that God loves and that God is pleased with. And it is in doing this that the human being, and only in doing this, that the human being finds real peace, tranquility, happiness and satisfaction. Only in this. Everything else is like the Coca-Cola. You drink it, it'll give you a quick buzz. It'll make you feel good for a short time. But that is not going to last long. In fact, just as it made you feel good, soon it will make you feel bad. And in reality, it will never ever satisfy you. It gives you the illusion, temporarily, of happiness. Anyone who has been addicted to drinking alcohol or has been addicted to smoking marijuana or taking drugs, they will experience this on a more severe level. This is something that anyone who's been down that path knows. When you drink alcohol or when you smoke marijuana or whatever other thing it is, you get a moment. It may be, in the case of heroin, for example, it may last 24 hours. In the case of smoking marijuana, it may last, it depends, a few hours. You have a moment, you have that time where you feel a sense of peace, you feel a sense of happiness. But the problem is it wears out. And the other problem is that in order to get back that feeling, you have to take more and more and more. In fact, it gets to a stage that it doesn't even affect you anymore, but you are now addicted. You're addicted to the habit and you continue even when you know that this is no longer bringing you any benefit at all, but you are upon this path of almost self-destruction. You have become an addict. And the fact that it doesn't seem to do anything for you, in fact now, even the feeling of happiness is gone, but you are down that path and it is almost impossible sometimes to leave it. This is the reality. So it may seem that people who do not worship God, who do not follow that path of righteousness, who do not try to do everything that is pleasing to Allah, it may seem that they are happy. It may seem that they experience moments of happiness, and you may see those moments of happiness. And you may think, oh, these are happy people. These people have a good life. They have a good quality of life. But this is only the temporary outward appearance. In fact, if you observe the situation for long enough, and you observe it deeply enough, and you observe it critically enough, you will see that that is not the case. You will see that they do not stay happy for very long. An example of this that came to light recently in England was that the Minister for Health made an announcement that many young women were beginning to drink excessively. It's a problem in England. Many young women were beginning to drink excessively, especially what they call binge drinking. And they were worried because, and one of the immediate effects that they could notice is that this was causing a great deal of liver damage. It was causing a great deal of liver damage. And interestingly enough, I came across an article in a newspaper written by two young professional girls, well off, good jobs, and they confessed that they were binge drinkers. But the interesting thing was, why? Why were they binge drinking? What caused them to binge drink? They said that our life is so empty and boring. Our life is so empty and boring. And we feel a state of depression. And the only thing that seems to bring a moment of release is unabated hedonism. Meaning just indulging in our passions and our desires and doing whatever we feel like, and then for a moment we get a relief. That's what she said. That's what they were writing. How is it that people who have good jobs, nice income, beautiful flat, house, things, they have all the food they want to eat, they're clothed with what they want to clothe themselves with, how do these people feel therefore empty and depressed? What is there for them to feel empty and depressed about? So if you look at this, and this is one case, and you'll find many cases like that, you'll find the same story again and again and again. One has to wonder why. Why do so many rock stars go on this path of self-destruction? Drugs, drink, committing suicide, killing themselves in many different ways. If fame, beauty, money is supposed to be the means to achieve happiness, then these should be the most happy of all people. But that's not the fact. That's not the way it is. There's something wrong. So that's what I'm saying. When you look at the issue deeply, you'll find that although these people appear on the outward surface to be happy, to be enjoying themselves, the reality is something quite different. But this way of living produces no real sense of satisfaction or happiness at all. It is very temporary. Sometimes some people can string enough moments and acquire enough things to make it appear as if they have happiness in their life. But that is not the reality of their situation. Islam teaches that the way to be happy is completely different. It is, as we have already mentioned, through making your actions that are beloved and pleasing to God. This produces within the soul of the human being, within the depths of the human being, a deep sense of well-being and happiness and contentment. And the person who has acquired this could be subjected to the most horrific types of physical and mental deprivation. They could live in extremely poor conditions. They could be deprived of what we might think are basic necessities. Yet you would find these people experience a state of bliss and happiness. In fact, some of those Muslims and some of those people who have embarked upon the spiritual path, if you want to call it, have put themselves in a situation where they are deprived of many of the so-called physical necessities because they consider them to be, in some respect, an impediment, a barrier between them reaching that state of true bliss and true happiness that comes from being a complete and true worshipper of God.